Jason was a soldier in a distant galaxy, far from home. He had been sent to a planet torn apart by war, where humans were helping rebuild after a long, brutal conflict. The planet was beautiful, but it carried the scars of a long history of violence. Jason had been assigned to assist in the efforts to bring peace, but there was something unusual about this mission. He was tasked with working alongside the alien princess, Liara, who was known for her fierce independence and cold demeanor. From the moment Jason met her, he knew that this was not going to be an easy mission. Liara was unlike anyone he had ever met. Her eyes held a mixture of strength and sadness, and she seemed to carry the weight of her people's suffering on her shoulders. She was an alien princess, and to Jason, she seemed more like a legend than a real person. Despite the fierce reputation, Jason couldn't help but notice the beauty in her, a beauty that went beyond her physical appearance. Liara, however, didn't feel the same way about Jason. She saw him as just another human, a member of a species that had come to help, but she couldn't help feeling that humans were too different from her people. She had seen the violence and the harm humans could cause, and she believed that their cultures were far too different for any meaningful connection. When Jason first approached her, she barely looked at him. "Not sure what you expect from me, soldier," she said with a cold voice, her words laced with caution. "But this is a task of duty, not friendship." Jason understood her distance. For all, she had every reason to distrust him and his people. But there was something about Liara, something in the way she carried herself that made Jason want to know her better. She wasn't just a princess with an important role to play. She was a person, just like him, with dreams, fears, and a history that shaped who she was. Days passed, and their work together continued. Jason tried to be kind, offering help when needed, but he didn't push her for anything more than what was necessary. He noticed the small things, the way her eyes would soften when she thought no one was looking, or the way she would stand alone when the workday ended, as though she was trying to distance herself from others, despite her cold demeanor. Jason could sense that Liara was not as indifferent as she appeared. There were moments when she seemed almost vulnerable, when the armor she wore as a leader slipped for just a moment. In those fleeting moments, Jason saw the real Liara, the one who had suffered, who had been hurt by her own people, and who was now carrying the responsibility of an entire planet on her shoulders. One evening, as the two of them walked through the ruins of a village that had been destroyed during the war, Jason couldn't help but ask, "Why do you push everyone away, Liara?" She didn't respond immediately. The silence between them was thick with unspoken words. Finally, she spoke, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. "It's easier to be alone than to trust anyone," she said quietly. "Humans, aliens, they all betray eventually, I've seen it. Trust is a weakness." Jason stopped walking and looked at her. He could see the pain in her eyes, the deep scars from the past that she had never allowed anyone to see. "Not all humans are like that," he said gently. "Some of us, we're different. We care." Lyra's eyes flicked to his, and for a moment, Jason thought she might say something. But she only shook her head. "I don't have time for feelings. I have a kingdom to protect." Jason nodded, understanding that she was not ready to let go of the walls she had built around herself. He respected that. But something inside him told him that he couldn't give up on her, not yet. There was more to Liara than the cold exterior she showed to the world, and he was determined to find it. The days that followed were a mix of hard work and silent tension. Jason and Liara continued their duties, fixing the damage done by the war, but there was always a distance between them. Every time Jason tried to get closer, Liara pulled back, keeping him at arm's length. One evening, as they sat together in the camp, watching the stars, Jason asked her, "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if things were different? There wasn't war if your people didn't have to fight so much." Lyra's gaze shifted to the stars above. She didn't answer at first, and Jason wasn't sure if she even heard him. Then softly she spoke. "Don't know if peace is even possible. My people are too broken. We have been for centuries." Jason felt a pang of sympathy for her, for the weight she carried. "I think it's possible," he said quietly. "Maybe not all at once, but little by little." Peace doesn't happen in a day, but it starts with people who are willing to try. Liara met his gaze, and for a brief moment, Jason saw something like hope flicker in her eyes. But then, just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by the same guarded expression she always wore. "You don't know what it's like to carry the burden of an entire people," she said, her hang inside her. Something that Jason knew could change everything. But first, he had to earn her trust, and that was something he was willing to fight for. As days passed on the war-torn planet, Jason found himself becoming more and more drawn to Liara. He admired her strength, the way she carried herself with a regal presence, despite the pain and hardship that seemed to follow her everywhere. He could see the weight of her past in her eyes, and though she pushed him away, Jason couldn't help but want to get closer. He knew that she had been through a lot, and it was clear that the scars of her people's history ran deep within her, but Liara remained distant. No matter how many times Jason tried to strike up a conversation or offer help, she remained cold, focused only on the task at hand. She often appeared to be in a world of her own, and when they worked together, there was always a tension between them, an invisible wall that seemed to separate them, no matter how close they were physically. One day, while they were inspecting a damaged outpost, Jason saw her standing alone, gazing at the horizon. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the sky, and for a moment she seemed lost in thought, as if the world around her didn't exist.
Ow.
Jason approached her slowly, unsure if she would even acknowledge his presence. "Liara." He called softly. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "What is it, human?" Her voice was as cold as ever, but there was something different in her eyes. He could see the hint of sadness beneath her mask of indifference. Jason hesitated for a moment. "I just wanted to check if you're okay. I know this is difficult for you." Liara scoffed, looking away. "You have no idea what it's like," she said bitterly. "You have no idea what it's like to lead a people who don't even care about each other. We are broken, human. No matter how much you try to help, you'll never fix us. Now, not ever." Jason felt the sting of her words, but he refused to back down. He had heard her story, understood the struggles her people had faced for centuries, but he couldn't accept the idea that there was no hope, I don't think. "You're broken, Liara," Jason said gently. "I think you're just carrying too much. You don't have to do it alone." She looked at him sharply, as if his words had struck a nerve. "I have too," she snapped. "I'm the last hope for my people. I can't afford to believe in things like hope or love. They just lead to disappointment." Jason stood there, silently watching her. He had never met anyone so guarded, so unwilling to let others in. It hurt him to see her like this, but he understood. She had been hurt, betrayed, by those she trusted. It had left scars deeper than anyone could imagine. "I'm not asking you to believe in love, Liara," Jason said, "but I believe in you. I think you're capable of more than you think. You're strong, and you're not alone. You don't have to carry everything by yourself." Liara didn't respond right away. She just stood there, her gaze distant, as if she was weighing his words carefully. After a long silence, she finally spoke, her voice quieter now. "You're foolish," she murmured. "You don't know anything about me or my people. You don't understand the burden I carry. I am not meant to have someone care about me. My people need me strong, not weak." Jason's heart ached for her, but he didn't back away. Not saying you're weak. I'm saying that you deserve to have someone who cares, even if it's just for a moment. You deserve to feel something more than all the pain and responsibility. You deserve to be happy, Liara." Her eyes softened for a brief moment, but then she turned away, as if ashamed of the vulnerability she had just shown. "This isn't about happiness, Jason. This is about survival. My people are fighting to survive, and I can't afford to let my emotions get in the way." Jason didn't push her any further, but as he watched her walk away, he felt a deep sense of sadness. He knew she was right in some ways. Her people were fighting for survival, and she had a responsibility to them. But he also knew that if she continued to shut herself off from the world, she would only be hurting herself more. In the end, Jason felt a small victory. It wasn't much, but it was progress. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he wasn't giving up. He believed in her, and that belief was something Liara would have to see for herself. As the days continued, their interactions began to shift, little by little. There was still resistance, but it was less harsh, less cold. Jason couldn't explain it, but he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't done yet. And maybe, just maybe, Liara wasn't done with him either. The days on the war-torn planet were long and exhausting, but Jason never stopped trying. He had been assigned to work with Liara, but it felt like a challenge far greater than the mission itself. Despite the progress they had made in repairing damaged structures and helping the people, there was still a distance between them. Liara remained distant, pushing him away every time he tried to connect. But Jason didn't let that stop him. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, Jason found Liara, once again alone, standing near the edge of the ruined city. He had grown used to seeing her this way, standing apart from the rest of the group, always in her own world. But today was different. There was something about the way she stood, something that made Jason's heart race. He approached her cautiously, trying not to disturb her. "Thoughts?" "Liara," he called softly. She turned to face him, and for the first time in days, her expression was not cold or distant. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of something that Jason couldn't quite understand. "What is it now, human?" she asked, but her voice was gentler than before, less harsh. Jason hesitated for a moment. "I was wondering if we could talk." Liara raised an eyebrow. "Talk? About what?" "I've been thinking about our situation," Jason began. "About the mission and about you." She crossed her arms, her gaze still intense, but she didn't move away. "And what have you been thinking?" "I think there's more to you than what you show," Jason said quietly. "I know you've been hurt, but you don't have to carry it all by yourself. I'm here to help. Not just with the mission, but with whatever else you need." Liara's expression softened for a moment, but she quickly masked it with her usual guarded look. "I don't need anyone's help," she said firmly. But there was a hint of uncertainty in her voice. Jason stepped closer, but he kept his distance. "You don't have to be alone, Liara. I don't want to fix you, but I want to be here for you. We don't have to pretend that everything is fine." For a long moment, Liara didn't respond. She seemed to be lost in thought, and Jason wondered if his words had made any impact at all. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet and full of doubt. "You think that just because you're here, things will magically change?" she asked. "That I can forget everything I've been through?" Jason didn't have an answer, couldn't magically fix her or take away her pain. But he knew one thing: he wasn't going to give up on her. "No, I don't think things will magically change," Jason replied. "But I believe that things can get better. And I believe in you, Liara." Liara looked away, staring into the distance, as if lost in thought. For a moment, Jason wondered if his words had fallen on deaf ears. But then, to his surprise, she spoke again. "You're foolish," she said softly. "You don't understand what it's like to carry the weight of an entire people. I am the last hope for my planet, and I can't afford to let my emotions get in the way." Jason looked at her with a mix of sympathy and determination. "I understand more than you think," he said gently. "I've seen the weight you carry, and I know it's not easy. But that doesn't mean you have to carry it alone. You're not alone anymore, Liara." For a long time, she didn't respond. Jason wondered if he had said too much, if he had overstepped his boundaries. But then, just as he was about to turn away, she spoke again. "You're wrong," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm not the last hope. I don't even know if my people can be saved. The damage is too great, the scars too deep. I don't even know if I can save myself." Jason reached out and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do everything alone," he said softly. "I'm here for you. We'll figure it out together." Liara nodded, her expression hardening once again. "You're right," she said, her voice once more cold and commanding. "Let's go." They made their way to the heart of the conflict, working together to lead the troops and help the civilians who were caught in the crossfire. As they fought side by side, Jason couldn't help but notice the strength in Lyra's movements. The way she commanded the battlefield with ease. She was a leader, a protector, and despite her doubts, She was beginning to trust him as the day wore on and the battle finally came to an end. Jason and Liara found themselves standing amidst the chaos, their clothes stained with dust and blood. The destruction was everywhere, but they had survived. They had made it through together, and for the first time Jason felt like there was hope. It's not just for the planet, but for Liara as well. She wasn't as alone as she had once thought. "I'll be here, Liara," Jason said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." She didn't say anything at first, but as they looked out over the ruined city, she finally spoke. Maybe you're right," she whispered. "Maybe things can get better." Jason smiled, though he knew there was still a long way to go. But he also knew one thing for sure: he wasn't giving up on her. Not now, not ever. The days that followed the battle were filled with both victory and sorrow. The damage to the planet was extensive, but they had managed to hold back the enemy. For the first time in a long while, the people of the planet felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't much, but it was something. Jason and Liara worked side by side, rebuilding what had been destroyed and providing help to those who had lost everything. It wasn't easy. The wounds of war ran deep, and many of the people on the planet still struggled to believe that peace could come. But there was something different in the air. A shift that even the most cynical of the citizens could feel. Liara had always carried herself with a sense of distance. But over the past few days, Jason noticed something had changed in her. She had started to open up just a little. The walls she had built around herself were slowly starting to crumble. But the process was slow and painful. One evening, after a long day of work, Jason found Liara standing near the edge of the village. The sun was setting, and the sky was painted with hues of purple and gold. It was a beautiful sight, but it wasn't enough to erase the sadness in Liara's eyes. She was staring into the distance, lost in thought. Jason walked up to her quietly. He had grown used to her distance, but this time there was something different. He could sense that she was struggling, not with the mission, but with something deeper. "Liara," he said softly, his voice gentle. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer immediately. She just stood there, her face shadowed by the fading light. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and filled with emotion. "I don't know if I can do this, Jason," she admitted, her voice trembling just slightly. "I don't know if I can carry this burden anymore. I'm the last hope for my people, but every time I think I've made progress, I see more destruction, more loss." Jason felt a pang of sympathy for her. He could see how much this mission meant to her, how deeply she cared for her people. But he also knew that carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders was slowly breaking her. "You don't have to carry it all alone," Jason said gently, stepping closer to her. "We're in this together. You don't have to be the only one fighting." Liara turned to face him, her expression soft but filled with doubt. "I have no choice. If I don't do this, everything we've worked for will be for nothing. My people will fall apart." Jason reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But what about you, Liara? What happens to you?" She looked away, her eyes clouded with confusion and fear. "I don't matter. I can't be weak. I can't afford to be." Jason's heart ached for her. He had seen the strength in her, but he had also seen the cracks beneath that strength. She wasn't invincible. She was human, just like him. "You matter more than you know," Jason said softly, his voice filled with sincerity. "You can't help your people if you're broken. You need to take care of yourself too." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly blinked them away. "I don't know how," she whispered. "I don't know how to stop being strong." Scared, Jason? "I'm scared that if I let go, everything will fall apart, that my people will be lost, and it will be my fault." Jason shook his head, his grip on her shoulder tightening slightly. "It won't be your fault. You've already done more than anyone could ask. You've been fighting for so long, for your people, for peace. But you don't have to fight alone anymore. Let me help you." Liara didn't say anything for a moment, but then, to Jason's surprise, she slowly nodded. For the first time since he had met her, he saw a glimpse of the person she truly was underneath all the layers of armor she had built. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice full of gratitude. I don't know if I can do this, but I'll try for my people, for you. Jason smiled, relieved that she was finally starting to open up. You have to do it for me, Liara. Do it for yourself.
Oh.
And let me be by your side. The following days were challenging as they continued their work to rebuild the planet, but something had shifted between Jason and Liara. They were no longer just allies working together on a mission, they were becoming something more. Jason had gained her trust, and for the first time, Liara was beginning to let herself believe in the possibility of a better future. Then, news arrived that shook them both to the core. A new threat was emerging. A powerful enemy force was approaching the planet, threatening to destroy everything they had worked so hard to build. The planet's people were unprepared, and Liara was faced with an impossible choice. Jason, she said, her voice filled with fear and determination. We have to do something. I have to protect my people. Jason nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision they both had to make. We'll fight. We'll do whatever it takes together. But Liara knew that this time the stakes were higher than ever. The fate of her people and of her own heart would be decided in the coming days. And as she looked at Jason, she realized something important. No matter the outcome, she didn't have to face it alone. She had Jason by her side, and that, in itself, it was a miracle. The news had come as a shock. An enemy fleet was heading toward the planet, stronger and more organized than anything Lyra's people had ever faced. The people of the planet had barely recovered from the previous battle, and now they were facing an even greater threat. It was clear that without immediate action, everything they had worked for would be destroyed. Liara had spent the past few days planning, trying to prepare for the worst. The stakes were higher than ever, and this time there was no room for mistakes. As the leader of her people, she was expected to make impossible decisions, but this time she was terrified. She had never felt so unsure of what the future would hold. Jason, however, had been by her side every step of the way. He had seen her doubts, her fears, and yet he never wavered in his support. He was the one person who had never abandoned her, the one person who had always believed in her, even when she hadn't believed in herself. They stood together on the balcony of the palace, looking out at the horizon where the enemy fleet was fast approaching. The sky had turned dark, the storm, clouds rolling in as if reflecting the tension in the air. Liara turned to Jason, her expression hardening with resolve. We need to act quickly, she said, her voice steady, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. If we don't stop them, my people will be lost. Jason nodded, his eyes locked on the sky. We'll stop them, together.
Liara
Took a deep breath and looked back at him. I've been fighting alone for so long, I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. I've always carried this burden by myself. Jason placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to do it alone, Liara. I'm here with you. I believe. In you, she met his gaze, and for the first time, she didn't look away. It was as if she finally understood what he had been trying to tell her all along, that love and trust were not weaknesses, but strengths. And with him by her side, she didn't have to face the impossible alone. The hours that followed were filled with frantic preparation. The planet's defense systems were activated, and the people rallied together, working as one to protect their home. Liara led them with strength and determination, but Jason could see the weight of it all on her shoulders. She was doing everything she could, but it wasn't enough. He needed something more. It was in that moment, as they stood side by side in the command center, that something incredible happened. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Liara felt a sudden surge of energy, something she had never experienced before. It was as if a power had awakened deep within her. She turned to Jason, her eyes wide with shock. What's happening? She asked, her voice trembling. Jason looked at her, his heart racing. I don't know, but it feels like something is changing. Liara's body seemed to glow with a soft light, and the energy around her crackled with power. Jason watched in awe as her eyes glowed with an intensity he had never seen before. It was as if she had tapped into an ancient force, something that had been dormant for eons, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the command center, loud and clear. Liara, this is the power of your people. It's a strength you've been carrying all this time. It's time for you to let go of your doubts and embrace it. Liara turned, her face pale. Who is speaking? The voice continued, its tone calm, yet powerful. It is the spirit of your ancestors, Liara. You have always carried the weight of your people's survival. But now you are not alone. You have found your strength in others. It is the love and trust you've shared that has unlocked this power. Jason looked at her in disbelief. Is this real? Liara nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. It's real. It's happening. The energy around her intensified, and Jason could feel the power radiating from her. It was overwhelming, a force unlike anything he had ever experienced. Lyra's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no fear in them, only a fierce determination. We can do this, Jason, she said, her voice strong and filled with conviction. We will stop them. With the newfound power coursing through her, Liara took command of the planet's defenses, guiding them with the strength and wisdom of her ancestors. The people of the planet rallied behind her, and the once impossible task now seemed achievable. The enemy fleet, confident in their victory, didn't stand a chance against the combined strength of Lyra's people and the incredible power she had unlocked. As the battle raged on, her energy glowing brighter with each passing moment, Jason was by her side, helping to direct the forces, but it was clear that it was Lyra's power that was turning the tide. With every move she made, the enemy grew weaker, their ships crumbling under the weight of her strength. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the last of the enemy ships was destroyed. The planet had been saved. Liara's people were safe. Exhausted but victorious, Liara collapsed into Jason's arms, her energy draining as the battle ended. We did it, she whispered, a smile on her face. Jason held her close, his heart swelling with pride and relief. We did it. You did it, Liara. She smiled up at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something more. I couldn't have done it without you, Jason. You showed me that I didn't have to fight alone. Jason kissed her forehead gently. And you showed me that there's power in love and trust. As the dust settled and the planet began to heal, Liara knew that she had changed, not just as a leader, but as a person. And with Jason by her side, she believed that the future could be brighter than she had ever imagined. The battle had been won, and the planet was safe. For the first time in a long while, Liara and her people could breathe a sigh of relief. The enemy fleet had been destroyed, and the threat had passed. But the victory was bittersweet. The war had taken its toll, and there was still much work to be done. Liara had saved her people, but she knew that peace would take time. It wasn't just about surviving the war, it was about rebuilding everything that had been lost. As the days passed, the people of Lyra's planet began to rebuild, but there was a new sense of unity among them. They were no longer just survivors. They were a people who had found hope in the face of despair. Lyra's leadership had brought them through the darkest times, and now they had a future to look forward to. Jason stood by her side, helping wherever he could. He had become more than just Lahi was her partner, her confidant. Together, they worked side by side, not just as warriors, but as people determined to create something better for their future, despite the peace that had settled over the planet. News of the miraculous victory had spread quickly across the galaxy. The victory of the Earthlings had become a symbol of hope. People were talking about the miracle that had occurred, about how a human soldier had helped an alien princess unlock a power that had saved an entire planet. Lyra's name was being spoken with awe, but there was one thing she hadn't expected: the reaction of the rest of the galaxy. A few weeks after the battle, representatives from other alien species began arriving at the planet. Liara had always known that her people's actions would have consequences, but she hadn't expected the response to be so overwhelming. The galaxy was watching, and now they wanted answers. One day, as Liara and Jason were walking through the city, they were approached by a group of high-ranking officials from a nearby planet. They were led by a tall, stern-looking alien who introduced himself as Commander Zorith, leader of the Zinter Empire. His people were known for their strength and their strict code of conduct. And it was clear that they were not here to simply congratulate Liara. They had come with questions. Liara, Commander Zorath began, his voice formal and commanding. We've heard much about your victory, but there are many questions that need to be answered. We know that humans were involved in your victory, and we cannot ignore the implications of that. Liara met his gaze steadily, her eyes narrowing slightly. What are you implying, Commander? Zorath's expression was unreadable. The galaxy has always believed that humans were weak. We've heard stories, but we never thought them to be true. Yet, here you stand, a human soldier at your side, eh? And your people have just accomplished what many thought was impossible. Jason stepped forward, sensing the tension in the air. We did what needed to be done, he said calmly. We fought together. That's what matters. Zorath's gaze shifted to him, studying him for a moment before speaking again. We know that. How can we be sure that this wasn't a one-time miracle? That your kind is truly capable of such power? Lyra's expression hardened. You may doubt us, but we've proven that we are more than capable of fighting for what's right. Humanity is strong, and we will continue to prove it. The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Zorath, after a long pause, finally spoke. You may have proven yourselves today. But the galaxy is not so easily convinced, he said, his voice cold. We will be watching you. And the future of your kind may very well depend on what you do next. With that, Zorath and his delegation turned and walked away, leaving Liara and Jason standing in the city square. Liara watched them go, a storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. She had always known that her people would be judged by others, but she hadn't expected this level of scrutiny. The galaxy wasn't ready to accept humans as equals, but she knew that with Jason by her side, they would have to face these challenges together. Do you think they'll come for us? Liara asked softly, her voice filled with concern. Jason looked at her, his face serious. I don't know, but we'll be ready. We've already faced the worst. We'll face whatever comes next. Liara nodded, her resolve strengthening. Had come so far, and she couldn't let fear stop her now. The galaxy may not accept humans, but she knew one thing for sure. They were stronger together than they ever were apart. And no matter what challenges lay ahead, she wouldn't back down. As the days passed, the tension in the air grew thicker. Representatives from other planets continued to arrive, some with peaceful intentions, others with a more cautious approach. But despite the uncertainty, Liara and Jason continued to work together, leading her people and preparing for whatever the future might hold. Then, one day word came that a grand council was being held. A gathering of the most powerful species in the galaxy. The council was meant to discuss the events that had transpired on Lyra's planet and to decide the future of humanity in the galaxy. Lyra knew that this council would be crucial in determining the fate of her people land of Jason. She turned to him, her face filled with determination. This is it, Jason. The council will decide everything. You have to be ready. Jason placed a hand on her shoulder, offering her a reassuring smile. We've faced worse, and we're not alone anymore. We'll be ready. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Liara and Jason had come too far to let fear control their destiny. Together, they would face whatever the galaxy threw their way. The day of the Grand Council had finally arrived. The air was thick with tension as Liara and Jason stood before the council chamber, waiting for the doors to open. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to discuss the future of humanity and Lyra's people. It was a moment that could change everything. The stakes were higher than ever before. Liara stood tall, her gaze steady, but she could feel the weight of the galaxy's eyes upon her. This council, with its many species, was not just about proving humanity's worth. It was about the future of her people, the future of peace, and most importantly, the future of her bond with Jason. The galaxy had witnessed their victory together, but now they would judge whether that victory was enough to change centuries of prejudice and fear. Jason stood by her side, his presence a quiet strength. He had always been by her side, and he wasn't about to stop now. He had seen what Liara was capable of, and he believed in her more than ever. He knew that no matter what happened in the council, they had already won something far more important, a chance at a future together. As the doors to the chamber slowly opened, Liara took a deep breath and stepped forward. Jason followed close. Behind her, his steps steady. Out. Inside the room, representatives from various species sat in a circle, their faces hard to read. It was clear that they had come with many questions, and perhaps even more doubts. At the center of the room sat the council leader, a tall alien with silver skin and piercing eyes. His name was Tarek, and he was known across the galaxy for his wisdom and neutrality. But even Tarek's calm demeanor couldn't hide the underlying tension in the room. Every species present was watching Liara and Jason, waiting to see how they would respond to the council's questions. Princess Liara, Tarek began, his voice strong and commanding. You stand before us today, having proven that humans are capable of more than we believed. Your actions have saved your people, and perhaps even the galaxy. But we must ask why should we allow humanity to join the rest of us? What makes them worthy of being part of the galactic community? Liara stood tall, her hands clasped together in front of her. She had prepared for this moment, but even now her heart was racing. We don't expect to be accepted because of one victory, she said, her voice steady. But humanity has shown, through actions, that we are capable of great strength. I have seen it firsthand. It is not just power or technology that makes us strong, it is our ability to care for others, to stand together when everything seems lost. There was a murmur among the council members, and some exchanged wary glances. Liara could feel their doubts, but she didn't let it shake her. She knew that her words had to be powerful, that she had to show the galaxy that humanity was more than just a species that had survived. They were a species that had the potential to bring about change. Jason stepped forward, his voice calm but filled with conviction. We have been underestimated for too long. But what we've shown is that we will fight for each other no matter the cost. We will continue to do so for the good of the galaxy. His words hung in the air, and for a moment, the room was silent. The other representatives were listening, taking in what they had heard. Liara glanced at him, a silent message of gratitude passing between them. She had always known that their journey together was about more than just survival. It was about something far greater, the chance to build a better future. The council leader Tarek spoke again, his tone softer now. You speak of unity, of strength through compassion. But can this really be the foundation of peace in the galaxy? Can we trust that humanity will not turn on us as others have? Lyra's eyes met Tarek's, and for a moment she saw something there, uncertainty, perhaps even fear. She knew that the galaxy had been through wars, betrayals, and destruction. It was hard to trust again when so much had been lost. But she also knew that humanity had been through its own share of hardship. And if there was one thing she had learned, it was that, even in the darkest of times, people could rise above it. We will not turn on you, Liara said firmly. I have seen how humanity can come together when it matters most. We will fight for peace, for understanding, and we will stand by our allies as we have stood by each other. There was a long silence as the council members considered her words. Jason stood quietly by her side, watching the room. He had never felt so exposed, but he knew that this moment was crucial. It wasn't just about them, it was about the future of their people, the future of the galaxy. Finally, Tarek spoke, his voice filled with thoughtfulness. Your words carry weight, Princess Liara, and your actions speak louder than any promise. We will take time to consider your request, but know this: you have earned the galaxy's attention. With that, the council members began to deliberate, discussing amongst themselves. The tension in the room was palpable, but Liara felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had spoken her truth. She had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. And now, all they could do was wait. As the deliberation continued, Jason turned to Liara, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Do you think they'll accept us? Liara glanced at him, her eyes full of determination. I don't know. Don't. But we've already proven that we can make a difference, no matter what happens. We'll keep fighting. Jason nodded, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. Together. For the first time in a long while, Liara felt a sense of peace. Whatever the outcome, she knew that with Jason by her side, they could face anything. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape, and that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all.